Are the Falcons rookies ready to push this team over the hump and onto a path towards the postseason?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. the iron that sharpens the iron, a.k.a. Sirius Black, a.k.a. Mr. AKA, and I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I think each and every one of you that goes strong with me as everydayers, that means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today we are joined by none other than Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and we'll dig into Jarvis's thoughts on the last few days of mandatory minicamp and some of the things he heard and saw down in Flowery Branch, as well as talk about some of the big questions entering training camp and maybe some areas of the opposite end of the spectrum that we feel really confident with heading into training camp. And then we'll also figure out, what's going on with Kirk. What's he saying? What are we supposed to take some of the things he's saying at face value? But that will be later in today's episode. But Jarvis, to kick things off, what were your thoughts on mandatory minicamp? And was there any one thing in particular that stood out to you over the past 2 days?
Well, I think for me, I think the revelation that we kind of touched on the Atlanta football party, I won't go all the way into what we talk about, but just an observation, just how the Falcons are going to be dependent on these younger guys to just really step in and play. And it really it stood out to me because they had a period where Michael Penix and the starters, they weren't playing, and on offense or defense. And then there were a lot of guys that were very familiar playing on the defensive side of the football. Namely, Jalen Walker was out there, and though he was getting reps against Jack Nelson, excuse me. So when you have, and then Billy Bowman was out there as well. When you have guys like that you are going to depend on to play, I just feel like that means to me that you can't afford to not let guys just be okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, and they're gonna be fine. They don't need to play in the preseason. Oh, they're good. I just think that just from a look standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, and guys who are vying for actual reps, on that defense side of the football, I think that's my biggest takeaway just from the mandatory minicamp, that, when they had all the young guys in there and they took the starters out, so to speak, putting those in quotation marks for our people listening on audio, it just seems to me that they're going to have to play guys, in this preseason in order to get a good look as to what their rotation would look like. And especially guys who are literally vying for a roster spot.
Yeah, I would like to agree with you, Jarvis, but I'm a little nervous when Emory Jones is getting all these team 11-11 reps, and I'm just like, this feels like they're getting prepared for the summer of Emory Jones, getting all the reps. We're just going to see a ton of Emory Jones this summer in the preseason. It's like, all right, no, nothing against Emory Jones. It's just like, okay, I'm again, me, Jarvis. As I said on the Atlanta football party, I set my expectations low so that I don't get disappointed. So I'm expecting to see all Emory Jones, all Nate Carter or whoever that UDFA running back.
Nash. I mean, Nick Nash.
I mean, sure, Nick Nash.
Kobe Bryant. Kobe
awesome.
Bryant.
Great. Yeah. Well, awesome. We'll see. Again, I expect the rookies will get some run. I'm worried about like it'll be just one game's worth of action, and then it's just a whole lot of Emory Jones the rest of the way. And I'm just like, all right, cool. I guess I don't know.
It's. I understand the philosophy, and here we go, going down this rabbit hole. But I understand the philosophy, man. You want to save people. People need to get their rest. You understand what people bring to the table. You got the vets. Yeah, Jake Matthews don't need to play, bro. I know what I'm gonna get from him. You know, Chris Lindstrom, damn sure don't need to play. I don't care to see Chris Lindstrom at all in the preseason. Taylor McGarry, I don't even want to see him in the preseason. Because, hey, man, the man can get hurt. It's possible. He's been hurt before. So, yeah, Storm Norton, bro, come on up in here and get some of this work, bro. You know what I'm saying? You got to be willing to step in. Get some left tackle work. We don't know. Jake has been healthy as all get out for all these years. So, if something happened to him, shoot, we want to see what you got on the left side. So can you be that hardcore swing tackle? But like Matt Bergeron, has he earned the opportunity not to play? Has Ryan Neuzil earned the opportunity not to play? Outside of just being the starter. Like, he's the starter. So I just think that there are certain guys that need to play. Ruka Rororo. Is he ready to step in the start these tackle opposite the Avion Yamada? Are you right now? Can you say right now that he's the bona fide starter? He's gonna be in that starting lineup when they announce that bad boy against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Are you comfortable, 100% sure to say that he's that guy?
No, I'm not. But
I mean, so like there's just that'd be very stubborn for him to not play guys like that. Zach Harrison. You're not gonna play Zach Harrison? Brandon Dorless? You're not gonna play Brandon Dorless?
Yeah. So we'll see. But you bring up question marks for some of these young guys, and we have about 5+ weeks between now and the start of training camp, or let me try to do the math in my head now that the official date is coming out, and I think it's actually 6 weeks from when we get the outset of training camp. And hopefully nothing, there's 6 weeks of no football, hopefully no news, in the sense of like if we're getting news, that usually means bad things are happening, people getting arrested at 3 a.m. on a random Saturday in the middle of June. So hopefully there's no news. But Jarvis, I want to pick your brain on sort of what is for you at this point in time. Is it the rookie class? Is it what is the biggest question mark going in training camp? And what is the thing that you're most confident that is not a question for this team going into training camp? And we'll get into that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Now, we know there's nothing like the NBA playoffs, but I know for a lot of you, Thunder Pacers may not be on your radar for your next live sports event. But of course, we got the upcoming NFL season and, of course, ongoing Major League Baseball. And the perfect place to go for whatever your next sporting event is going to be is Game Time, who are taking the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, sports, comedy, music, theater, whatever event is near you. Game Time means that you don't have to plan months or weeks in advance. Spontaneity is the key with Game Time, because prices on the app actually go down just before the start of your events, and coupled with their panoramic seat views and no surprise fees at checkout, Game Time is taking the guesswork out of buying tickets. And all you got to do to take that guesswork out is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So continuing with today's Locked On Falcons here with Jarvis Davis, and we're talking about we got about 6 weeks till training camp, and we'll find out a lot more about this team and their personnel as we get into July and August, when the practices start to matter, and they're not just going through the motions, as in my humble opinion, is how it is usually during OTAs and minicamp. It's just it's a ramp up, right? They're starting out to build it up, and it's it's not even real practice. Is basically what I'm at. But when we talk about this team heading into training camp, what is one area, whether it's a position group, whether it's a player, whether it's something that you feel strongest about, that you're like, I know what this is. This is a non-question. I have no doubts, no certainty. What is that thing for you for this team heading into the training camp?
Wow. For me, I kind of want to. I want to say the offensive line, but Ryan Neuzil, he doesn't scare me, but he is the guy now. There's a difference between being able to step in and do a solid job and know that, hey, our starter's coming back, so we're not really too concerned about you long term, versus, hey, you're the guy now. You're the guy being paid to be that guy now. And before Ryan Neuzil, before we knew that Drew Dahlman was pretty much headed out the door, I would have said the offensive line, hands down. Like, yep, all 5 starters coming back. Okay, here we go. And then we started hearing the rumors of the numbers that were being thrown around about Drew Dahlman. I was like, oh, so it looked like Ryan Neuzil about to get ready to step in and be that guy. So that's my confident. I'm confident in the 4 guys, right? Those guys coming back. I'm confident in Caleb McGarry, Chris Lindstrom, Matt Bergeron, and Jake Matthews, as long as he stays healthy. But adding Ryan Neuzil into the fold does kind of lighten that some, if that makes sense. But yeah, man, because I feel like that's the biggest piece to your success this year in the offensive line. If they're able to do what they need to do to free up Bijan when they turn around and hand the ball off to him, I think that's going to open up so many things in year 2 for Zach Robinson and his offense, because this offense is going to have to carry this team. Yeah, regardless of what people think as far as what that defense is going to bring to the table.
Yeah. And, I think that speaks to probably the biggest area of confidence. You still have a question about that unit when you talk about the offensive line, given is Ryan Neuzil to step up, and the analogy I would use is like, hey, when my brother's wife gives me a call and be like, hey, I need to run out to the store. Can you watch these kids for, I got to run some errands or whatever, watch them for an hour or two. I'm like, yeah, sure. I can watch them for an hour or two.
All good,
but
baby.
If she's like, hey, I'm leaving the country, I need you to watch these kids for like the next 2 weeks, I'm like, nah, I ain't about that. So like, right. That's basically what Ryan Neuzil, he was babysitting, and it's like it's a different thing when you're just babysitting for a couple of hours versus
absolutely.
Now I got to be a parent for that's kind of how I'm liking it. Where
a lot of pressure, man.
Yeah, it's a lot more pressure on Ryan Neuzil heading into this summer as the guy. But when you talk about what's an area on the opposite end of the spectrum that you have the most questions about heading into training camp, whether it's are we going to see these guys in the preseason, or is it maybe another position group that you are not as certain on that group?
I would say the edge group. I mean, I know they got a bevy of talent, right? They got guys with potential. They got guys with a lot of talent, high floors or whatever. They got guys going into contract years. You got guys coming off an injury. It's just so many guys in that room. And I'm just like, man, I have so many questions because it's not clear to me who's going to be the guys, right? Leonard Floyd, I'm sure he's going to get his fair share of reps. But, in a perfect world, Leonard Floyd just coming in on 3rd and long. That's just me. If that means that you're Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. or James Pierce Jr. and Arnie Ebiketie, or Jalen Walker and Arnie Ebiketie have said, hey, man, these are our spots. And then you can come in and help out on 3rd and long, and maybe Jalen Walker bumps back the inside linebacker or kick out Divine Diablo, but they seem to be in love with him at this point. But we'll see. I just think it's just from who's going to be the starter, Like, what does that rotation look like? And who's going to be that guy? Because when you have this many guys that you're looking at to take so many snaps, at some point during the season, the cream gonna start rising to the crop. Rising to the top. Like, you're gonna say, okay, I know that we want to get Braylon Trice some reps, but man, AK is sitting on 6-7 sacks right now, and we're halfway through the season. Or James Pierce Jr. don't all gonna caught fire, and we can't take him off the field. So that's my biggest question. Not necessarily from them not having enough talent at that spot, but just from a standpoint of, okay, what does that rotation look like? Who's going to be the starters, and who's going to be your guys you can count on as the season goes along, and hopefully they're helping you, march on to the playoffs because you can put the quarterback on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a great point, because you're looking at probably 6-ish guys that you expect to get some run at edge. Leonard Floyd, Arnold Bichetti, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, Zach Harrison, Braylon Trice. You could potentially throw Brandon Dorless in there. You could potentially throw D'Angelo Malone in there. If you want to throw Khalid Kareem.
Bro, before bro, have you seen D'Angelo Malone, though?
Moving off-ball linebacker, right?
Yeah, man. He ain't got no choice. That man is 235, dripping wet. The man is lean. So yeah, he better not be on that lineup over tackle. that bro.
Yeah, well, he was having issues stopping the run at 245. So yeah,
no doubt. Yeah.
But yeah, because there's so many bodies there, I do think someone's probably going to get lost in the shuffle. Maybe multiple guys will get lost in the shuffle in terms of reps. And that's going to be one of those things that, I think piggybacking on the point you made earlier about giving these guys opportunities in the preseason. You go back 2 years ago with DeMarco Hellams, right? He was consistently sort of working with the third string behind Micah Abernathy, and then got into preseason games and was like, nah, I should be on the second team and
taking heads off.
Yeah. And so by the end of the summer, he was sort of leapfrogging Micah Abernathy on the depth chart, and whatnot. And so, like, it's gonna be fascinating to see how the team kind of divvies up these edge snaps. And like, there's a chance, like I've been telling people this, like there's a chance that James Pierce and Jalen Walker aren't getting as many snaps as I think people want them to do coming out of the gates, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That when you have more established guys like Arnold Bichetti and Leonard Floyd, similar to what we saw last year, where early in the season Arnold Bichetti was kind of lost in the shuffle, eventually worked his way onto the field, but we didn't really get to see that until like week 5, week 6. Those first couple of games, that first month of the season, there's a lot more Lorenzo Carter, a lot more James Smith-Williams. And I know for obvious reasons, people are like, that we better not get a repeat of that. But at the same time, they do have a lot of bodies there, and I'm going to be fascinated to see how that rotation kind of, works itself out.
I'm gonna pull a Raheem Morris. I pray that we get a chance to see all these guys get some work in the preseason, man, because that is the easiest way to get these reps. I understand they're gonna try to sell me on the Tennessee Titans coming to town and getting all that good work. Everybody gonna be able to see it. The Falcons just released the open practice schedule, so the open practices are the joint practices. So you're gonna be able to see those guys go up against other people. You know what I'm saying? With a different jersey on, that amps up practice a little bit, and especially with the fans being out there, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. However, I think that's a controlled environment. Once you get into the games, you don't know what they're calling. You don't know if they're doing inside run or outside run. You don't know if you're just doing 7-on-7. It's not one-on-ones with no other people flying around or anything like that, having to pick up a blitz maybe here or there. It's just the element of surprise is taken away in these joint practices. They have a lot of control with these practices. So I just hope, man, that he has a change of heart. And I just deep down, I feel like he's probably gonna stay the same, which is not good in my humble football opinion. But man, if we can get those young guys in there and let them just let them figure it out on the field. Figure it out on the field, man. Like I don't need no element of surprise. Like figure it out on the field. Because you'll know who's gonna, oh, okay. 27. Yep, he need to be out there. All right, let him. All right, this is why they drafted him. All right, cool. And then Arne Ebiketie and Braylon Trice and all them folks, they just gonna have to figure it out. Hey, man, you got to work because these young pups coming in here and they trying to play and they proving it on the field. So
yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. You talk about controlling the environment. Well, one person who has tried his best to control the narrative surrounding his struggles in 2024 is Kirk Cousins. And Kirk talked this past week about, him being a lot more injured during the season than what he initially believed. And Jarvis, it goes back to a conversation we had shortly after the Super Bowl where Kirk did his media tour. I'm like, oh, I was hurt the whole time, guys. Like, but I'm going to be healthy this year. And I'm wondering, is this still part of that conversation? So we'll get into that as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So Kirk Cousins spoke to the media basically for the first time since he was benched, or at least to the local media, I should say. He's done his own little media tour at various points this offseason.
Car watch.
Yeah. And, he talked about, to paraphrase a little bit of what Kirk said was, he thought he was healthier last season than he was. And, he didn't have quite the mobility in the ankle. The Achilles was the non-issue, but his ankle was something that was bothering him a little bit, in the elbow and the shoulder with the Saints injury and all that stuff. And with Jarvis, we talked about this shortly after Kirk first kind of came out back in late January, early February, right before the Super Bowl, doing his little media tour, where he was like, "Oh, I was really hurt last year, and that affected me more than I let on initially." And basically, my takeaway was like that's part of Kirk's ability to kind of control the narrative of for another team, and not to say I don't want to make it sound like I think Kirk is lying. I'm just sitting here saying like there's a lying, and then there's presenting a version of the truth that makes you look better. And I think in Kirk's case, it's for him, he has to play up the injury from last season or injuries from last season as a way to say, hey, don't judge me off of the struggles I had last year. That was all injury. I'm better. Come get me. Let's let me get an opportunity. And so I'm just wondering, when you heard Kirk say the things that he said this past week, do you feel like he's being, I don't want to say honest or whatever, but is it just part of, it just felt like to me it was part of the ongoing damage control from the last couple of months. That's for me. I don't know how you felt about Jarvis.
I was there and I was leaning in, like, I maybe tweeted some things out that he said while I was listening, but just Kirk is a pro, man. He is a professional. That dude, it is when it comes to saying the right things and mostly doing the right things, like this dude, he has it, man. You kind of understand why he made up $200 some odd million in his career, playing the game of football. So, but I can't sit up here and say that he was being disingenuous. I can't say that, because I really feel like he believes what he was saying, and saying that basically he said, yeah, man, I thought I could go. Because I've had success in the past because I toughed it out. I fought through injury. What football player hasn't fought through injury? And everybody's like, oh, he did. He lied, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, no, he ain't lied. He like I said, like I mentioned on the football party earlier, man, football players got a little sick and twisted to them. You know, like you gotta be halfway crazy, or at least a fourth crazy to go out there and play football in that game because it's so violent, right? So from that standpoint, I believe him. However, there's always things that you keep to yourself that you only talk about to your wife, maybe in close friends, people who can't be touched by Adam Schefter, and and become sources, closer to the situation.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's how that works, guys. These insiders, they get relationships with people that know. That's why they say it like that. So, but and that is, this man has been running from this situation for the past few years because he knows he's coming towards the end, or at least has an idea that people don't see him as that guy anymore. So when that was the reason why he left Minnesota. Minnesota was very upfront. Hey man, we're gonna draft a young quarterback. You can stick out here, usher him in and all that. Kirk said, nah, I'm cool with that. And then I'm gonna go sign with Atlanta, get $100 million of guaranteed bread. Draft night rolls around, and Atlanta Falcons draft Michael Penix, quarterback out of the University of Washington. Oh my gosh. Or Kirk is mad. Or his camp is confused. Yeah, they confused because that's not what they talked about when they signed him. He was coming here to be the guy and bring a Super Bowl to the team. He even mentioned that. He was like, hey man, I'm here to do whatever I got to do to win a Super Bowl. I wholeheartedly believe that he means that. And he knows what his role is. He said, hey man, it's not reality. I gotta live in reality, man. My situation, I can't be a starter right now. So me thinking about that, me wanting to be a starter or communicating that with the team again, like, nah, man. He said that was a February conversation. So yeah, I think he was genuine when he was talking about the situation that he's in right now. But there is a small part of him, I feel, that he knows is the absolute truth, and you can't run from it. This is the messed up situation that he tried to avoid. He tried to avoid this situation, and he found himself in it once again.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole point of getting the 2 years of guarantees. So that it's like, well,
Yes, bro.
if I get
Yes,
2 years of
man.
guarantee, they're not
Come
going
on,
to draft
man.
a quarterback in the first round. They might take
Super
a guy,
agent.
in
He
the
worked it
third
all out,
round or
baby.
whatever. And the Falcons are like, nah, man, we gonna do what we gonna do. So and now he finds himself in that predicament. So I just was like, Kirk is so candid about that injury now, and it's like, like I'm just like, this man was like saying nothing,
bro,
about being hurt or nothing. And I get it. Like, I get it. I'm not faulting him for
right,
hiding his injury or whatever. If you
why
want
you
to
put
say
air
it.
quotes, man?
I'm just saying,
He was hurt, bro. He played like he was hurt, didn't he?
But I'm not faulting him for that. I'm just like this man went from zero, like, no, there's no injury, to like, hey man, I could barely walk, man. I was like like crutches, everything. Like, it just
I need the crutches, bro. That man said, but when he threw the numbers out, bro, like as to how injured he was, like he was like, yeah, man, I thought I was like an 8, 9, maybe even 10. I think he said 10. I can't remember exactly, but he's like, but I was actually a 4. I was like, damn.
And again,
he might have been laying a little bit thick. I can admit that. He might be laying it on. When he dropped those numbers, he was laying on.
We know Kirk from the Netflix doc that he's very in tune with his body and whatnot. And to be that far off, like if he had said like I'm at an 8 and I was really at like a 6, I've been like, okay.
Yeah,
but to go from like what was like 8 to 3 or what, I'm like, Kirk,
that man said 3, 4, bro. I was like, oh, bro, that's half.
I don't know if I buy it. That's all. That's all.
You lose your touch, bro.
Just like I'm not buying this whole, like, I was I could barely walk. I was in the hospital every other, like
and I know, and that's the thing, man. Like, people get so upset about it, and I understand, man. Like, but people not wired like that, man. You don't make it to the NFL, bro. Like, and get to a point like, I can't go. Let me go ahead and hand the keys over to Michael Penix Jr. Because Lord knows I'm gonna get my job back, right?
Yeah.
Especially, just let's just say, for instance, Michael Penix came in for the Raiders game and balled out. Would you been surprised if you'd have balled out against the Raiders? And then they talking about, oh yeah, Kirk said, I'm healthy now. I can go. I can tough it out. You think he's gonna come back? Like he knows the game, man. Shoot. Look at how he came to start in Washington. I know it was a little extraness going on.
Yeah.
But hey man, that's the game, dog. Bruh. Tom Brady, shoot, he understand. He understands. That's how he got an opportunity. Drew Bledsoe went down. Shoot. Doggone Bill Belichick looked around and said, diva quarterback who I know is probably limited as far as getting me to a Super Bowl and winning one. Or let me get this other guy that got a 600-pound chip on his shoulder and it's ready to prove that he actually belongs in the league. Come on, man.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. It happens. Yeah. That happens all the time.
I mean, Tom Brady basically was like, you're going to need to get Jimmy Garoppolo up out of here because I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. That led to that whole trade where it's like,
come on, somebody. Come on now. And he's a Super Bowl champion quarterback and got that type of insecurity.
If anybody was untouchable on the planet, it was Tom Brady as quarterback. But even he was feeling a little bit of heat. Like, I don't need this dude around.
Get him out of here.
Yeah.
Get him out of here. Like, man, that's the game, dog. I know people are like, oh, that's Tom Brady. Man, look, dog. I don't want that smoke. I know I'm better than him, but I don't want that smoke. I don't want that type of smoke. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to think about that stuff.
It's like I get it. Like I don't fault Kirk whatsoever for whatever went down. I'm just like, just feels awfully convenient that you're just like, if he was so hurt last year, and it's like, you just go from one end of the spectrum to the other, where it's like, no, all season long, it's like injury, not an issue, and then all of a sudden, man, I was on death's door, last year playing injuries.
I was about to die on the field. Do you understand that? I was about to die.
it just feels like a very big shift in tone. That's all I'm saying. I
felt like I was an 11.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
The truth is somewhere in the middle. He was more hurt than he let on.
Yeah,
I don't know if he was as hurt as he's currently letting on. That's where
on a scale of 1 to 10, guys, I was an 11. You know what I'm saying? But actuality, I was a -2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see what's what when Kirk and company come back for training camp. We're about 6 weeks away. We'll still be going here on Locked On Falcons, of course. Our next episode will be, I believe, a Billy Bowman breakdown. I know you guys are been like, where, it's like 2 weeks late, Aaron, on that thing. I had to take a break, guys. But we will get into all the Billy Bowman film on our next episode on Sunday night here on YouTube or wherever you listen on your audio feed. So continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with Joe Marino. Kyle Krabs are going to make you the most informed fans there are all summer long. Find it all on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every